I'd like to welcome you officially to our top big event of the day. We're going to be talking about pronunciation games. Does anybody like to play games? Yeah? Okay, especially related to pronunciation. So we have a specialist here who's going to tell us about and probably teach us a few really fun games to do when we are engaged in helping learners learn to pronounce their target language more clearly. I am Marsha Chan, and I am one of the co-coordinators of TOP. And who are TOP? Pronunciation teachers are TOPs. Who are my co-coordinators? Randy.
I'm Randy Reitmeyer from UC Santa Barbara. I'm also here as one of the TOPS IG co-coordinators.
And Patrick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Marsha. I live in Oregon right now. I work at Portland Community College, and I'm one of the 3 top IG co-coordinators.
We're going to have Mark Hancock talk to us a lot about pronunciation games of different types. But I'd like to remind you that with CATESOL Top Dig, we have our message board. So if you are a member of CATESOL, don't forget that we can communicate with each other on the message board, the forum, right? So CATESOL Top at catesol.org. That is how you get into the message board. And I try to put out messages that will allow you to remember that we have events like today, but please be free to put out any questions or comments or suggestions to the rest of us who are interested in the teaching and learning of pronunciation. We also have a Facebook group. And if you are a Facebook member and you haven't joined yet, please feel free to tap the join button. Another thing that is important for you to remember is that we have a Padlet, a top Padlet. So this is dedicated to our CATESOL Teaching of Pronunciation Interest Group. And on this Padlet, you will be able to see links to recordings of previous events that we have held over the years and find out a little bit more about who has been helping us run this little interest group. And then places for you to add a suggestion if you have something that you'd like to do in the future. Now, some of you are members of CATESOL, and some of you are guests. You are non-members. You are here because you found out about this great opportunity to come, but you might want to know what else we do. You don't have to be a CATESOL member in order to join our topic e-list. If you join our topic e-list, we'll send you an announcement that says, okay, so in March, we're going to do such and such, and in April, we're going to do such and such. So we're not going to blast you with anything else, right, Patrick? We just send out announcements on events that we are going to have. We try to do this every month, all right? So that's a little bit about us at CATESOL Top. And if you are thinking about becoming a member, because some people say, you know, they know about not only the topic, we have a lot of IGs that have really cool events going on. And in my other hat, I am the professional development coordinator. So I like to help all the IGs and the levels and the chapters put on their events and schedule them and so forth. So I'm really passionate about doing this sort of professional development. And if you are interested in finding out what is happening in other IGs, you could become a member, right? Okay, and you get monthly updates on what's going on. You get free access to an unlimited number of IGs and groups and levels and chapters. And of course, you'll be able to interact with a lot of folks like the people here who are interested in improving our overall teaching and learning of English as another language. All right, so without further ado, I would like to give the stage to our guest presenter, Mark Hancock. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, okay, so he was muted, and I'll tell you a little about it. He's far away from me. I'm in the US of A, and he is in the UK in northwest part of England.
Wow.
Chester, right?
I'm in Chester. Chester is a small provincial town in England where it's dark and it's Friday night and everybody is going out to the pub right now. So if you hear anybody shouting through the window, I'm right next to the window here. They walk right past my window. So you may hear some shouting a little bit later as the evening wears on. I'm proposing to talk to you about some pronunciation games, because that's what Marsha said you would be interested in hearing about. So the title is Mazes, Maps, Rhymes and Raps. Sounds like 4 things, but really it's 3. Mazes, maps, rhymes and raps is 1 thing. And the organization of this talk is extremely simple. 1/3 of it will be mazes, 1/3 maps, and 1/3 rhymes and raps. I'll just give a few examples of each of this type of activity, and I will try to make the point that each type of activity has a very distinct purpose. The purpose of the activity needs to be fitted to what you're teaching. You see, not every activity works for every purpose. So it's a question of matching your purpose to the activity type. I'll also, by the end of the session, hopefully you'll have some ideas about how to make your own versions of some of the games that I'm showing you. I'll give you some templates. In fact, I've already put in the chat box the slides for this session. The slides I'm going to show them, some of the slides I'm going to show right here behind me, and some of the slides are going to be in a PowerPoint, but one way or another, they're all on that PDF, which is in the chat box currently. So thank you for coming. And let's begin. I'm going to start by an overview slide on the background here. And you can see that it's divided into 3 parts, A, B, and C. Mazes, maps, rhymes, and raps. Mazes are the more cerebral part, as the little picture suggests. It's about those aspects of pronunciation which involve awareness of patterns. For example, spelling patterns is a classic case. I'll show you an example of mazes which focus on spelling patterns. In the second part, maps, this is a type of activity which focuses on those aspects of pronunciation teaching which are about interaction, getting your meaning across, understanding and being understood. This type of activity is particularly good for minimal pair type material, like coat and goat, for example. And then the third type of activity, rhymes and raps. I think these are the most important thing about these is they stick in the mind like an earworm. So they're really good for helping your students to retain what you're teaching them. They go round and round in the head long after your students have left the class. In fact, you might find them a week later coming back to the class still singing the same rap that you taught them in the last lesson. So let's go straight on to the first activity of the day, which is an example of a maze. A maze is an activity where you have to find a path from one end to the other. In this case, you can only step on a stone if the word on that stone has the same vowel sound as this one here in black, in, or this one, win. This lacks front vowel. So it's basically going to test your students' instinct about the matching of sound to spelling. As you can see, your first step, you've got a choice of 3. You've got a whine, hit, or high. So where are you going to go? You can type in the chat box where we go next. Yep. Thank you, Ruth. We'll go to hit, hit, and then after hit, where next? Visit, okay. Visit. Ooh, Patrick's gone right to the end already. Okay. Patrick, let's see where Patrick's taking us. Patrick saying visit, fish, 50, sit, rich, chip, if, river, milk, give, drink, and win. Thank you. That saves a bit of time. We get right to the end fast. Now, what I do with this kind of activity is when the students have done it, you can get the students to do the activity more or less by instinct. Then you go back with them as you check through the answers together with the class. And then ask them to identify spelling patterns, right? So, for example, wine, why doesn't this one fit in the path? And what spelling feature can you notice about it? How does it differ from win? If you take away the E, it turns into win. And so you can see that that E is not exactly silent, as it's sometimes called. It's actually changing the vowel before it, sometimes called the magic E in Britain. I don't know, maybe it's called the silent E in North America, but that E anyway, you can see a few more examples of that in the game. That's one spelling pattern that I would want the students to notice, pretty important. Any other patterns? Okay, when you have the letter I right at the end, that's not going to be I, because you can't have I at the end of a word. So the letter I at the end. Marnie says the magic E makes the vowel sound like itself, or I've heard that said this way: the magic E makes the vowel say its own name in the alphabet when you're saying the alphabet. Yeah. So that's the magic E. That you've got the final vowel at the end of a word is never going to be a short vowel. Then you've got this funny spelling combination here, IGH. The GH is part of the spelling of a vowel, which is not a short one. And then you've got this one like girl, for example. When you have an R after a vowel, it always changes the vowel before it, whether or not you pronounce it. In my accent, for example, I don't pronounce that R, girl, but it still affects the vowel before it, even so. So it's not exactly silent, it's changing the vowel. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing I would want the students to focus on. I'm going to put a link here in the chat. This is a link to a page with a lot more of these if you want to use them for different sounds and letters in the alphabet. So that was my first example of a maze. For the next one, it's a bit complicated, so I'm going to take us to the slide share screen here. These are the slides that you'll get to, that I put in the chat there as a PDF. That's the one we just looked at. Those are the other ones that are on the website. The next one I want to look at is this one here. Look, you have to go from A to B again. But this time it looks like it's a spelling thing. Do you add ES in the third person of the verb? Like walk, you add an ES here? You don't. Count, no, you just have an S. So let's see, you could put in the chat where we go next. It's going to be teachers, isn't it? Because I've discounted talk. It's not count. So it's teachers. Teachers, add an ES. Where should we go after that? Washes. Yes, washes. Washes, thank you. Switches, yes, thank you. Next. Ooh, you can't jump, I'm afraid. Yeah, we're still at switch. Sweet dresses, yes. Next, kisses, yeah. Kisses, and then we can go to pushes. That, yeah. And then where? Catches, presses, watches. We can't go to fix because we can't jump. Wishes, yes. Guesses. Fixes. Searches. Finishes. Right, that takes us to the end. This looks like a spelling activity, doesn't it? Is it a pronunciation activity or is it not? How is this a pronunciation activity? Anybody?
Well, there's a relationship indeed between pronunciation and spelling. And for those of you who are more interested in delving into this, we did have a session on the nexus between spelling and pronunciation. So go back to our previous recording to find out more, but definitely, Mark, this is a fun way to do the.
Yeah. Although, Marsha, I would argue that this is not really a spelling activity. This is a pronunciation activity, because the same rule will work even for places where spelling is not involved. For example, the apostrophe s of the possessive works by the same rule, and the rule is what? Sibilance. Thank you, Randall. Yes. If the end of the root verb is something from the sibilant end of the chart, then it's going to require an extra syllable, simply because poor English speakers find it difficult to put an S right on the end of a sibilant. It's too much similarity, too close together. We're putting a vowel in there to separate them. So there is a pronunciation rule in there, if you want to go there. It's a little bit difficult to explain to students sometimes because they might not know the word sibilant, of course. But they can get it kind of by instinct, just because it's difficult to say teach without the vowel. So that was the second example of a maze, just to show something slightly different from the obvious. The next example works to do with the past tense ending, the ed endings. And this maze, it has two paths, corner to corner. You've got top left to bottom right and top right to bottom left. So Patrick, let's see how fast you can do this. Go for it. So we're starting at the ed equals t. Ed equals t. Tried on, switched on, pulled up. Which one is it to be?
Oh, can I do the whole thing?
Oh, go on then. Yeah, save us.
Well, I'm thinking it would be switched on first.
Switched on.
Can I move to booked up?
Booked up, you can. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. Then checked in.
Wait a minute. I think Michelle's beating you to it. Michelle, go, go. Patrick, you're gonna have to go. No, you're gonna have to go fast, Patrick. You've got to beat Michelle.
Oh, okay. Passed out.
Passed out. Thank you.
Picked off.
Picked off.
Looked up.
Looked up. Looked up where? Looked up. Yeah.
Yeah. Helped out.
Helped out.
Washed up.
Washed up.
Yeah, I think washed. Yeah, washed up.
Yeah.
Mixed up.
You're going faster than Michelle can type. Poor thing. Her fingers must be burning. Yeah. Stopped off. Yeah.
Oh, so I think someone beat me to it.
Paula.
Well, actually, no. Waited and wanted wouldn't be part of it, I think.
You
oh yeah, those are just the ids. Yeah, those are the double syllables. So we've got stopped and then packed.
Packed up, yeah.
And then walked.
Walked out.
Locked.
Locked up.
Worked. And then
worked
that's
out.
The end of the end. T. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Randall beat me to it, actually. Well done, Randy.
Well, I guess you got there at the same time. So yeah, congratulations. Anyway, the reason I put these.
I see. Yeah, I see what Paula did. I'm sorry. That there's the other path of the id ending.
Paula's done the other path. Yeah. So that saves us the trouble, right? But I just want to point out one small thing here. In this game, I put prepositions after the verbs. Why? I did it because it's easier to hear the ending when you've got a vowel coming after it, so that you can make a link from the ending into the vowel, and then the t is easier to hear. For example, switched on, booked up, booked up. So if I was working on this with students, especially students who have difficulty with final consonant clusters, as many do, I would put them together with these prepositions in this way, just to facilitate the pronunciation of those consonant clusters at the end, because why not make it easier? So booked up. And if your student finds it difficult to say booked, then booked up is maybe another way of doing it. Paula took us through the id endings like waited in, wanted out, etc. How do you know when to put the extra syllable, the I, the I, that vowel there, id? And this one, Paula has got the answer. If the root verb ends with a T or a D. This one, thankfully, is much easier to explain to your students than the one about sibilants, because T and D, that's just easy to express. Sibilant is a weird word. So the rule is easy to say. So if the final sound is t or d of the root verb, you add an extra syllable. Thank you, Marnie. So that's another kind of maze then. So we're just getting a little bit further away from straightforward spelling rules into more pronunciation rules here, but always something a little bit cerebral here. So mazes. I'm going to go back to my screen behind me to show you the next one. This is a much simpler looking one, right? You're going to go from A to B. If the word has the sound E, as in feet, feet, feet. So we're going to end up at feel. So from feet, we're going to go to cheap, and then are we going to go to heed? No, I guess not. Head, no. Okay. Next. Peace, right? Peace, peace, peace. I won't labor this one because we've done enough mazes already, but peace, and then peace. Peace, 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 peace. I tell you what, the students are absolutely amazed to hear that these sound the same. In fact, sometimes they don't even believe it when I tell them. They go, no, I can hear the difference, they say. What can you do? They just don't believe that homophones are possible. Then we go to meet. Oh, Alexis is taking us right to the end. Heat, meet. These. You went diagonally. I can see that you're a bit of an anarchist, Alexis, because look, there's no doorway here. You have to go through a doorway, go through heat, and then these, and me, and see, and feel. Yeah. And then you can go through some of the spelling patterns, the most common spelling pattern being the double E or the EA. But then there's a few strange outliers like IE. And then a vowel at the end of a word like that. Or there you've got a magic E even here, look. So you can explore the different spelling patterns. And let's not forget the spelling patterns of the ones which are not in the path. Like head, you see, really it should be pronounced heed, should it not? But it's not always the case that EA is that sound. Yeah. And then EAR, R is always going to change it, so that's another different one. So you can look at the spelling patterns of the words which are in the path, but also the ones which are not in the path. Now, my point is that you can make these quite easily. Take a grid. You can use this grid, or you can make one. It doesn't have to have these little doorways. It's just a nice little feature, but it can just be a straight grid. The table, Microsoft Word, make a table. And then you can put in a load of words which have this target sound in them, making a continuous path from A to B. Try to include a range of spellings that you want to focus on, so not all the same spelling. And then you put in the rest of the words, fill in the rest. And the best words to put in the other ones are ones which look as if they might be that sound. You want a cunning distractor. Otherwise, it's going to be too easy. You want to put a bit of challenge in there, and you want to point out irregularities like the head heed thing. So you can make your own. What's more, and I do this myself quite a lot, you can get your students to make their own. And then they can take a photograph of it, and then they can send it to their partners or project it to the class, and everybody can do the ones that have been made by other students. Always nice to get them to make their own weapons. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the topic of mazes. Next topic is maps. Let me start with a street map. This street map, 6 streets, some horizontal, some vertical. We've got State Street here, Estate Street next down here, look. We've got Sleep Street and Asleep Street. And then there's Steam Street and Esteem Street there. So as you can see, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for example, Spanish-speaking learners, because of that parenthesis at the beginning, the extra syllable. So I'm going to say, give you directions to a place, and you have to put in the chat box the letter that I'm taking you to, A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. For example, if I say Estate Street, Steam Street, or I'll meet you on the corner of Estate Street and Steam Street, that's going to be this very attractive little cafe here called C. So let's try it. I'll meet you on the corner of Sleep Street and Steam Street. Everybody's going to E. It's exactly the same place as I'm going to, so that's an amazing achievement. In fact, it's a triumph of communication. I feel very proud of myself and of you as well. Would maybe a volunteer from the audience like to try another one? When I say volunteer, I'm talking about Alexis.
Okay. I'll meet you on the corner of Asleep Street and Steam Street.
Let's see where everybody's going. I know where I'm going. People are going to G. Yeah. Okay, so am I. There's a coincidence. Great. Yeah, so you see how the game works. Now, what I really like about this type of game, what I think is really the best thing about this, is that it corrects itself. You don't need to correct the students. If they don't get to the place they intend to go to, they attempt to correct themselves. It's self-regulating. That's what I want to say. That plus it demonstrates that pronunciation is not just for decoration. It can make a difference in meaning, in understanding and being understood. Okay, it's maybe a little bit contrived, but it's a powerful message. So those 2 things I've said, right? It's self-regulating, and it demonstrates the importance, the communicative importance of the pronunciation feature. Once again, You can always make your own. Take an empty street map and put your minimal pairs, one minimal pair in the vertical, one minimal pair here, and one minimal pair here. Very useful if you have a couple of sounds where there are not many minimal pairs, like B and V, B and V, for example, because then you can just invent words which have the minimal pair and call it a street name. So you know how it's sometimes frustrating that you can't find a suitable minimal pair for the pronunciation point you want to focus on. Well, here's the solution to that problem. I'm going to go back to slides again for the next map because it's just a little bit too complicated to put behind me. Here, this is a listening game because look at the A and the B down below here. They ask a question. They asked a question. As you know, the vowel in pale color here is not going to be pronounced here. So the difference between these two, ask a question and asked a question, is a little bit tricky. So it's difficult to know if the person is speaking about the present or the past. So in order to focus students' attention on this slight difference in the with the consonant clusters at the end of words, we have this game. If I say A, you're going over to the west. For example, I ask a question. That was A. So I'm going over to the west. Number 2, I looked at the photos. That was a B. So I'm going to the east, right? This way. The next one, number 3. We stopped twerking. That was another B, so we'll head off to the east again. And then finally, I walk away. I walk away was an A, so that's going to be another west, taking us to the city of Madrid. That's how the game works. So let's try it again, but this time, no Mr. Nice Guy. I'll do it without the cursor. You just have to follow. And then in the chat, when we finally reach a destination, you can write it. 1. They ask a question. 2. I look at the photos. 3. We stop working. 4. I walk away. Yeah, well, look, I was trying to go to Los Angeles, to be honest, although I see that some people are going to Lima. So that means that when number 3, maybe I wasn't clear enough. So I need to work harder on saying, we stop working. We stop working. We stop working. Or maybe you need to hear it better. Whose fault is it? Nobody's fault. The fact is, communication is a cooperative business, right? So it's nobody's fault. And there's always going to be certain, if the game's got any value to it at all, there's going to be some difficulty about it. By the way, I put a vowel or a semi-vowel as the following word in each case for a good reason. If you were to put, for example, they asked the question instead of a, it would be pretty much impossible to distinguish. And I don't mean to make the game impossible. I want it to be possible. Are you okay with that game? Is that clear? Yeah. So that was another map. The next map, we're going to look at the difference between B and V. But you've got van and ban, bet and vet, pub, puff, vote and boat, berry and very, and best and best. So here's how it goes. I'm just going to say 2 words and you have to say the city. Okay, so here we go. Bet very. Yeah, I said bet and very. Takes us to Detroit. Bet very. That's how the game works. So, Carla, would you like to say 2 words? Take us to a place.
Okay, sure. Let's see. Puff boat.
Did you take us to Monterey?
That's right.
Well, that seems like everybody went to the same place, so that's cool. That's how it works. Very good, thank you. Okay, so the game's easy, and if you want to make your own version, simply cut away the words and put on your own minimal pairs down the side. You want 3 minimal pairs down the vertical and 3 minimal pairs along the horizontal there.
And your learners will have to know how to pronounce all those different city names.
Yes, sometimes I use a map from their learner's own country. It depends if I want to go into that business or not. If you use a map, for example, of Spain, and the learners are from Spain, then they don't need to worry about the pronunciation of the cities. So that you can use it as an extra feature or not. It depends if you want that extra thing. I might have a problem with pronouncing some of those myself, actually, like this one here, for example, here in, is that Idaho? How do you say that?
You say Butte.
Thank you. Right, now I know.
I believe so, right?
In Montana, actually, not Idaho.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, Montana, that's
My
right.
home
That's
state.
right. That's right, I have actually been there.
Montana's my home state.
Is Butte the correct pronunciation?
Butte is how they say it.
That's how they say it.
I like the way you put that, yeah. There's a correct is a horrible word, isn't it? It's how they say it is a good way of putting it. All right, so I'll move on to the last example of a map. The last example of a map, I was just trying to find a way of working on tonic stress, contrastive stress. And I find that students, quite apart from the complexity of the meaning, the difference between, for example, where do you live or where do you live? Quite apart from the difference in meaning, the nuance, they simply can't hear or produce that difference. So I'm just not dealing with the meaning here. I'm just dealing with the production. Can you produce where do you live or where do you live? Are you able to do that? Tonic stress or contrastive stress. So if I say, where do you live? I've stressed the do, so I go to the do. If I say, where do you live? I stress the you, so you have to go to the you. And then we go up the next pole to the next one, etc. And finally, that takes us to one of these places at the top. So if I do it with me speaking and you listening, this is to help you practice hearing the difference in stress, to try and overcome stress deafness, which some students have. Some students, they say, well, I can't hear the difference. Well, it needs a bit of work. So let's start this practice activity. I'm going to do it without the cursor. You just have to listen and then tell me which place we get to, right? Where do you live? What do you think? Who did you see? How do you know? Ah, Alexis, Patrick, school. Oh, someone's going to the beach. Ah, most people are going to the school. Someone's going to the beach. I think that's wishful thinking. No, we're all going to school, I'm afraid. The beach, you can go there if you want, but that's not where I went. Let's have somebody else try it. Why not?
Well, why don't you first, Mark? Why don't you first tell us where you went? And
You're curious to know where I went. You want to know where I went, do you? I went to school. I went to school. And did you go to the beach?
why don't you repeat what you said and then show your cursor?
My first sentence was, where do you live? So I think I went this way. The second one was, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I think I said, think. What do you think? That's what I was trying to emphasize, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
And then, who did you see? Who did you see? Which was this. And the final one, how do you know? How do you know? Which was a you, to school. That's the way I think I went. Okay. So, does anybody want to try that? A volunteer from the audience? Susan.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, took me a second there. I think this is a fabulous activity. Let me see if I can guide you through this. Okay, so I start at the bottom. Let's see. Where do you live? What do you think? Who did you see? How do you know? Did I do that correctly? I don't even remember what I did.
Well, look.
Yes, beach. Yay, you got to the beach. I hope you had a good time. Okay.
Yeah. I went to the beach as well. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that thing. I don't know about correct. It's the result that counts. Okay. And the result is everybody went to the same place. So good. That's all I can say. And that was the last of the map type activities that I wanted to show today. Okay, so I want to move on to rhymes and raps next. Rhymes and raps. Here's one. This one's about the weather. It's actually a limerick. Whether the weather was good or whether the weather was bad. The weather was better when we were together, whatever the weather we had. There we go. You can see I put some numbers underneath. So it's quite good fun if you get the class or some people, some volunteers from the class to say the numbers to set the rhythm like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure if this would work online. Should we try it? Okay. Who's
I'll do it.
I'll do it.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
Whether the weather was good.
1, 2.
Whether the weather was bad.
1.
The weather was better when we were together, whatever the weather we had.
4. 1, 2.
Thank you.
3, 4.
Well, the metronome was not on the same beat as you, but there was a beat.
Yeah, I think that was maybe you see that oftentimes there's a lag in time over the wire, so this doesn't always work online. So maybe if you're teaching online, maybe that's not such a good idea. But this is how we found out.
But I think if you just do it with your hands and clapping, the movement does not vary when you have it online. So
Okay, but so you think the camera timing is is let me just test that theory, Maya. I'm going to do it like clapping and saying it at the same time. All right. Whether the weather was good or whether the weather was bad, the weather was better when we were together, whatever the weather we had.
Now, Mark, do you remember before we opened our session, I talked to you about how my choir did, during the pandemic, we did the Zoom singing groups. And so
Yeah.
because of the lag on different computers and different internet connectivity issues, what we did was we learned it from the teacher, and then we turned off our mics and we all did it kind of more or less simultaneously, but not enough to knock each other off of rhythm.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So
we could do now, right? Like if we all turn off our mics, but we follow you and we do the repetition and clapping together.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. If you're going to teach this kind of thing online, maybe don't try to do a chorus, because Marsha's got plenty of experience in that field. We don't want to do rhymes and raps online as a choral thing, but you just have to get them to do it at home with their microphone muted. They can join in that way. In fact, we'll try that very thing with the next activity. This one here was based on a limerick. That's why I put the numbers in, because the silent beat, the number 4 here in brackets, that number 4 there in brackets, the silent beat, sometimes they're not aware of that. So seeing it written there, it helps. But the next activity, this activity, as you can see, it focuses on the W, the w sound, plus a bit of the that some students are going to find difficult. The next one is focusing on the E, fit and feet thing. Okay. So it goes like this. You won't get fit just sitting on a seat. If you want to get fit, got to get up on your feet. Don't fill that seat. Got to move a little bit. Get your feet to the beat. Feel the heat. That's it. That's it. So you can join in with me. We'll do 2 lines, and then you can repeat the 2 lines. Let's try that. You won't get fit just sitting on a seat. If you want to get fit, got to get up on your feet. Don't fill that seat, got to move a little bit. Get your feet to the beat, feel the heat. That's it. Thank you. I couldn't actually hear you, but I think some people were actually joining in. The ones I can't even see everybody.
That's a lot of fun. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. I can imagine that you're all singing it at home. Now, what I do with this, I tend to use it at the end of a class where we've just been working on those 2 vowel sounds there, and maybe do 2 lines at a time, and then the class repeats. You can do 1 line and the class repeats. You can do less than a line, especially if they're having difficulty. Those last 2 lines, for example, get your feet to the beat, feel the heat. That's it. They tend to find that rather difficult. A lot of syllables in there, so you might want to do shorter bits like that. Get your feet. 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 Get your feet, and just do a loop of that short bit. Or slow it down. Get your feet to the beat, feel the heat, that kind of thing. Anyway, all kinds of different ways of drilling it. By the time you get to the part where the students are actually flying solo, you can get them doing it. Well, half the class does 2 lines, the other half class does the other 2 lines, bouncing off each other that way. You can get them to do different kinds of movements to go with it. Performances of that sort. By the time that they leave the class, it's going to be going round and round in their head like some kind of infernal loop, and they'll be singing it mentally all the way home. In fact, you'll get them singing it to you in the next class when they come. So it's that powerful, that kind of thing, and it sticks in the mind like an earworm. Okay, yeah, That one here, I had to compose that at great length. But if you want to compose your own quickly, there's no reason why not, because what I'm calling rhymes and raps, they don't have to be long and elaborate at all. They can be very simple and brief. In fact, any chunk of language, if you repeat it a few times, turns into a rap almost by magic. So I'll just show you something I made when I was teaching the past tense again, another past tense example. This one here. Knocked and waited, closed and locked, wanted it to open, waited, knocked, this one, it's not rocket science. You've got one rhyme here, locked and knocked. So that gives it a sense of rhyme about it. But I really wanted to show some examples of different pronunciations of the ED ending there. So you can show them in a bit of linking as well, and the elision of the D. Knocked and waited. You can say the line and the students repeat it. Knocked and waited. Closed and locked. Wanted it to open. Waited, knocked. Like that. And you can add some music if you like that kind of thing. So how about a bit of the Frere and Jacques tune? Knocked and waited, closed and locked, wanted it to open, waited, knocked, like that. Some people like singing, some don't. If they like singing, do that with them. Give it a try. So I simply wanted to make the point that you can put together something that works has the function of being an earworm, something that is memorable and sticks in the mind and gives lots of practice.
Mark,
Yeah.
Leave your nightmare hotel to us. Recite your nightmare hotel to us, okay?
Well, yeah, okay. I thought we wouldn't have time, but I can do that.
Why don't you just give us a run through, okay?
I'll just give you a run through that. I'll put it on the slide. The Nightmare Hotel is another story, a little bit more complicated than the Knocked and Waited, but it's essentially the same story as that one. But when I get to the end of the story, you have to tell me how it continues. Okay. I walked up the hill to the Nightmare Hotel. I stopped at the door, but I couldn't see the bell. I knocked and I waited in the cold and windy night. I looked in the window, but there wasn't any light. That's when I noticed the door was open. Then it started raining, so I walked inside. The door closed behind me. I asked, "Who's there?" That's when I noticed the rats on the stairs. I turned around to leave, but I couldn't see the door. That's when I noticed the body on the floor. Then the body moved. The woman wasn't dead. She told me her story. This is what she said. What did she say? What? You think she made a spooky noise? I'll tell you what she said. She said, I walked up the hill to the Nightmare Hotel. I stopped at the door, but I couldn't see the bell. I knocked and I waited in the cold and windy night. I looked in the window, but there wasn't any light, etc. And it goes around again in a claustrophobic nightmare loop that you can never escape from. And that's the end of the story. So thank you for listening to me today. Any questions?
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Mark. Our participants, have you got any comments or questions that you'd like to bring up at this time?
Where do we find the Nightmare Hotel?
Good question, because I happen to have put that on Instagram. and on my website. So I'll just put you a link in the chat of said things, right?
That was my favorite.
So I put in the chat, there's a YouTube has got, I think it's on the YouTube as well. I think so. It's on the Instagram, and it's on the website. I
And
can
yes,
find a.
all of you who are registrants, I will be sending out a recording of this along with some links to that Mark has kindly shared.
Okay. Well, it's the Nightmare Hotel is also on the same website as those spelling mazes that I showed you right at the beginning. So there you have that. Yeah. So help yourself and hope you enjoy using that material.
Okay, well, thank you all very, very much. I think it's time for us to give an applause to our presenters. Thank you very much for coming. And I'd like to also say thank you to our participants for participating as we usually do in our top sessions. And come back for more. Thank you all.